Today's seminar is all about the food-mood connection and how diet shapes you. So, first of all, how do you feel about your relationship with food? Before we get started, take a moment and think about your usual eating routine. Do you get strong cravings at certain times of the day or when you feel certain emotions? How do you feel about your overall relationship with food? Many of us experience cravings for food when we're actually craving something else. We could potentially be craving another emotion, and this emotional hunger is not satisfied when we eat food, and it actually will continue to grow until we feel the emotions that our body wants to feel. Sometimes we might be craving attention or affection from friends or family to feel loved. Other times we might be craving happiness or a sense of calmness. And we use food to try to achieve these emotions when other stress management techniques could potentially hurt or help a lot better. So in today's seminar, we're going to discuss how emotions, bodily chemicals, hormones, neurotransmitters, and fatigue may also affect food choices and how we use these cues to impact why we eat and how we feel in general. So we're going to start off with a little science, and we're going to talk about what causes us to experience mood change and emotions in the first place. So two chemicals are responsible for many of the emotions that we experience. These chemicals are hormones and neurotransmitters. So we're going to look a little closer at each of these. Let's start with hormones. Hormones are simply chemical messengers within the body. Typically, they're made in one area of the body and travel through the bloodstream to impact the activity at another point in the body. Hormones can impact growth, development, reproduction, metabolism, and mood. Let's also touch on neurotransmitters. So neurotransmitters are messengers that transmit signals from the brain to the rest of the body. They can impact muscle movement and our ability for our brains to signal our muscles to move. They can impact our mood and emotion. They can actually make us feel happy and relaxed, or the opposite if our levels are off. They can impact our memory. When neurotransmitters bring the nervous system on high alert, memory is enhanced. They can impact our sensory response and how we experience our five senses, such as sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. And they can also impact our stress response and our flight or fight response, powering you to either act or flee from whatever is happening. So neurotransmitters are necessary for us to move and to think properly. If neurotransmitters don't properly communicate messages within the brain, then mental health is likely to come out of this and be impacted. Depression can actually result if our neurotransmitters are not working properly. Also, if our neurotransmitters don't communicate properly between the brain and the rest of the body, we can experience tremors, movement problems, and other things. Some of the nutrients in food we eat become part of the neurotransmitters that help us think. Neurotransmitters are probably the biological explanation for the food-mood connection itself. So, there are many different kinds of hormones and neurotransmitters, and there are several that have a particularly strong impact on mood, emotions, and appetite. So we'll start with ghrelin. This regulates the feeling of hunger. It actually stimulates appetite and prepares the body for food. It helps the body to digest more food so that it gets more calories to use for functioning. And it also plays a role in the food reward response that you feel after eating in response to stress. We also have leptin. This regulates our feeling of fullness. So leptin is released from fat cells in the body and signals the brain to stop eating. It also helps to control how much energy you burn throughout the day, as it functions to help you to maintain your body weight. The next one is cortisol, which regulates stress response. The stress response heightens certain body systems. It increases our blood pressure, heart rate, blood sugar, muscle tension, etc., and decreases the activity of other body systems that aren't as important for fighting a stressor. Excessive cortisol release over time can also contribute to mental health problems like depression or anxiety. We also have insulin, which regulates our blood sugar levels. Insulin allows the body to absorb the glucose that is released in the body after eating. If excessive amounts of glucose or sugar are left in the blood, it can cause inflammation, which stresses the body. Both low and high blood sugar can affect how we feel and potentially lead to fatigue and other symptoms. When it comes to neurotransmitters, we have serotonin. This regulates sleep, appetite, and mood. 95% of the serotonin that our bodies produce is actually made in the digestive tract, so it makes sense that serotonin impacts our appetite as well as our emotions. Keeping a healthy gut through a nutritious diet can help to keep our serotonin levels at a normal level. Too little serotonin has been linked to increased appetite for high carbohydrate comfort foods, increased risk of depression, and also irritability. We also have dopamine. So this influences motivation and perception, signals sense of reward, good feelings, and dopamine also helps us to feel pleasure and happiness and is released when we eat pleasant tasting foods. High fat and high sugar foods are often considered pleasant and can trigger this reward centered, leading to overconsumption of food. So dopamine can potentially lead to overconsumption of food, and this can reinforce poor food habits over time, but also can be used to reinforce positive, healthy habits as well. So now that we know what causes us to experience emotions in the first place, let's take a look at how our emotions can affect our food choices and how our food choices can also impact our emotions. In the same way our mood can affect our food intake, food can also impact our mood. Here are a few responses we get when we eat certain foods. So we can have heightened alertness and increased focus when we have coffee or any other food with caffeine. We can potentially experience a calm state or sedative effect, relaxation, if we have foods high in carbohydrates. We can experience sleepiness from a large meal or a meal high in tryptophan. Tryptophan is actually the neurotransmitter found in foods like turkey. We can experience satisfaction or happiness when we share a meal with friends or family. And then we can also potentially experience depression or guilt from eating a food that we have deemed off limits or eating too much of a certain food in general. Eating is inherently an emotional activity. Food is fuel for our bodies, but it's also a part of our culture, our history, our family life. It brings people together for the pleasurable experience of enjoying a meal or snack together. The activities that make up a meal, like spending time with loved ones, cooking with family or friends, keeping family dinner traditions alive, that all affects our emotions. It's not just the specific foods that we eat that have the impact. Eating shouldn't be the only way that we process our emotions, but it's important to note that it is normal for eating and emotions to go hand in hand. It's when eating with emotions turns into emotional eating to cope with stressors that can lead to complications and affect our health. So emotional hunger can often lead to physical hunger cravings. In an attempt to satisfy emotional hunger, many people turn to food and use food as a substitute for lack of pleasure in deeper areas of our lives. So you can attempt to fill emotional cravings for connectedness, relaxation, happiness with food. However, pleasure from food is short-lived. That's the thing. It will eventually go away, and then you're left with the same underlying emotional hunger waiting to be filled. This can lead to overeating or other negative coping strategies over time if the underlying cause is not addressed. Cravings can stem from routine, physical sights or smells, diet mentality, fatigue, and even boredom, among other causes as well. Certain emotions have been associated with cravings for certain foods or types of foods. So here are some foods that you might crave when experiencing certain emotions. These cravings definitely may not hold true for everyone, but I'm sure that everybody can relate to at least one or two of these and have experienced some of these cravings before. Emotional eating is eating in response to negative or positive emotions in an attempt to satisfy an emotional need. We are surrounded by food most of the day and have the option of eating when we are hungry or when we are not. Many of us have gotten out of the habit of responding just to hunger cues as a time to eat. Some respond to the time of day when others are eating, or because they are experiencing a certain emotion like frustration or stress. This can become problematic when food is the only way that we cope with stress or frustration. Because we're trying to fill an emotional need with something physical, we may overeat as we never receive the fullness or satisfaction cue that we're waiting on as a signal. Getting tied up in this feedback loop of stress, eating emotionally, feeling stressed, and eating emotionally again can lead to an unhealthy long-term habit, weight gain, and even feelings of guilt and shame. While it can be difficult to remove things that cause stress in our lives, like work, finances, sometimes family, we still can control how we respond to them. Handling stressors in a positive manner can help us to maintain control even when our lives become overwhelming. Food is one of the ways that we can help our stress response. When we eat foods that cause surges and crashes in our blood sugar, like highly processed foods or foods that are high in sugars, our cells end up becoming inflamed and stressed. This causes our stress hormones to increase, and while we think a sugary or processed treat will help us with our stress because it sends a quick signal to the reward center of the brain, it's actually short-lived and eventually will lead to an increased stress hormone with continued spikes and crashes when you have that much sugar. We want to aim to keep our blood sugar at a stable level with minimal highs and lows. This can help to reduce spikes in our stress hormones. So we want to think foods rich in fiber, complex carbohydrates, healthy fats, and proteins, which are digested slower and provide the body with a more lasting form of energy instead of those spikes. Eating consistently can also help throughout the day. It's important to note that nutritious food choices is just one of the ways that we can manage our stress levels. Other healthy habits like exercise, meditation, getting enough sleep, deep breathing exercises, these things can also all help us to manage our stress as well. Managing stress through means of other situations than nutrition is equally important for curbing our emotional eating. So take some alone time and explore what makes you happy and fulfilled. Regularly make time for those activities. If you manage your stress, then you may not have as much of it, and then you may not emotionally eat as much. This could be spending time with family and friends can help. They have added value to your life. You can also try exploring new places, try new experiences, and new experiences can teach you what does or does not make you happy. But also think about what other activities help you to relieve stress. It might be reading a book, listening to music, deep breathing, meditation, whatever it might be. Definitely try to find time in your life for you time to do these activities. So with this information in mind, hopefully you can now think of food and mood as operating in a two-way street. They influence one another in a complementary fashion, and food can affect mood and emotions, but mood and emotions can also influence what, when, and how much we eat. There are ways to manage this eating cycle so that we can get back in touch with our hunger signals and use wholesome foods that boost our mood as our fuel. So let's go over 6 tips on how you can use food to boost your mood. We have make mood boosting foods routine, change your cues, eat mindfully, eat consistently, eat before you're over hungry, and ditch the deprivation mentality. So let's start with making mood boosting foods your routine. So include these foods as a regular part of your diet, and here are some foods that have been found to positively impact our mood. We'll start with spinach or dark leafy greens because they have folate and magnesium. So folate aids in the creation of new cells that support serotonin, and serotonin is an essential neurotransmitter connected with mood and depression prevention. So research of folic acid suggests that low levels may be associated with depressive symptoms. So we want to increase our amount that we are taking in when it comes to folic acid, and this can be done with spinach or dark leafy greens. We also have broccoli, which has chromium. This trace mineral plays an important role in glucose and lipid metabolism, which may explain its role in mood. Small studies have found that chromium supplementation may improve symptoms of depression as well. The next one is dairy, which has calcium, and calcium deficiency affects women more than men, as low levels can play a role in premenstrual syndrome related depression. So calcium is important for the release of certain neurotransmitters as well. We also have almonds and peanuts, which have magnesium, and magnesium is important for normal cell signaling and nerve function. Magnesium deficiency can cause irritability, fatigue, and mental confusion as well. Chickpeas is helpful. Tuna, salmon, pork, cashews, and pumpkin seeds. They all have zinc, and zinc is found in every cell of the body and helps with the immune system, and having too little zinc is also linked to depression. The next one, chia seeds, salmon, and walnuts. So this is all because chia seeds, salmon, and walnuts all have omega-3s. And this healthy type of unsaturated fat plays an important role in brain health and depression prevention. And some studies have found that it helps to maintain levels of neurotransmitters such as dopamine and promote neuron growth. The body does not naturally create this fat, so we do actually need to consume it. So it is very important to incorporate some chia seeds, salmon, and walnuts into our diet to get those omega-3s. The next one, change your cues. Remember learning about Pavlov and his dog in science class? Pavlov trained his dog to salivate at the sound of a bell, even when the bell didn't lead to food. In many ways, we are Pavlov's dog. We respond to the same stimulus. For some, it's seeing a bowl of candy. For others, it's being at home in front of the TV. So here are 3 steps that are necessary to change your eating cues to support a healthier lifestyle. 1, recognize when you eat for reasons other than hunger. So these scenarios are situations that you may find yourself in when you are out of routine, or maybe you're eating based on your emotional cues instead of your hunger cues that trigger the habit to eat for you. So think about what it is for you that triggers that. It could potentially be a certain time of day, at work or at home. It could be seeing or smelling certain types of foods in the break room, whatever it might be there. Maybe passing a favorite restaurant, maybe any type of distraction if you're bored watching TV. But next, you want to make sure that you change your routine. So after you recognize what it is that cues you, change your routine. What is a healthier behavior that you could do to substitute when you experience your cues and triggers? Figure out something else you could be doing instead of eating if you're not truly hungry. Plan a healthier activity to do instead of turning to food. For example, change your driving route so that you don't go by your favorite restaurant if that's what it is that cues you. or go for a walk or meditate instead of turning to the break room donuts when you need a mental break from work. Also, a good idea is to set reminders. Check in with yourself and your new routine regularly. What is working for you? What isn't working for you? Maybe you really are hungry and not just stressed when you reach for your afternoon snack. Is there a healthier snack option that you could turn to? Maybe if you're bringing cookies for your snack, you should potentially try to bring something a little healthier. You can also check in with yourself when you typically experience your cravings or your desire to eat. For example, if you tend to get restless and crave a snack mid-morning, set a reminder on your calendar to take a break and listen to what your body needs. Maybe a good walk would help at that time instead of reaching for unhealthy foods. If you're overwhelmed, try meditation or deep breathing exercises. Maybe listen to some happy music. If you're hungry, eat a nutritious snack. If your legs are restless, take a quick stretch break. Tackle your emotions as you experience them instead of avoiding them or pushing them off until later. This will help you to not have cravings for food. Eat mindfully. So to recognize true hunger, you must check in with your body. Eating for a reason more than hunger may indicate emotional eating. It's not easy to know the difference between physical and emotional hunger. When you have a craving for something sweet and gooey like a chocolate chip cookie or a cinnamon roll, it could be your stomach's way of gently reminding you that it's time to refuel. Carb cravings often come when we are over hungry, or it could also be a signal that you're bored or need a distraction. How can you tell the difference? So there are 4 things that we're going to talk about. 1, satisfaction versus relief. So think about it. Do I want to eat for energy to fuel my body to make it through this day? Or am I looking for relief of a sense of security or safety? Quick test for this. Put your hand on the part of your body that needs help. Does it go to your stomach because it's hungry, or does it go to your head because it's hurting? Aim to satisfy part of your body that your hand rests on. If your brain is bored, give it some mental stimulus. Do something to make you think a little bit. If your hand traveled to your shoulders, lift and release your shoulders 5 times to relax your muscles. If your hand lays on your stomach, mindfully choose a nourishing food. Emotional versus physical hunger. Am I eating in response to being physically hungry? Is your stomach rumbling? Do you have low energy? Or are you feeling scared, frustrated, overwhelmed, or happy? Rate your hunger scale on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being very, very hungry and 10 being very stuffed or feeling sick. Try eating a mandarin orange or a clementine. This is a really great food to help curb emotional eating and to de-stress. It is easy to peel, and the segments are perfectly portioned to mindfully eat one at a time. The sweet flavor is satisfying, and research has shown that citrus aromas can be calming. Also, a mandarin orange gives a little boost of vitamin C, which is just what we need when we are feeling stressed or emotional. Next, we want nutritious versus palatable. So think about it. Am I choosing nutritious, rich foods or sugary, fatty, salty foods? A true hungry individual will eat a large range of foods that will quickly quiet their hunger. Someone eating emotionally is driven to eat one specific thing or one type of food. So keep good tasting, healthy foods around. We often keep diet foods around which may not be as tasty or satisfying. Think 1 tablespoon of peanut butter with a banana or apple, or hummus with your favorite veggie. Have berries around with a piece or 2 of dark chocolate. This will be helpful. Next, lifelong versus transient. Am I building a healthy relationship with food versus anxiety, guilt, or fear? So before you eat, ask yourself how you will feel after the first bite. After you finish the food, how are you going to feel? Are you going to feel guilt? And then pause if you think it'll be a negative emotion. Sometimes we wait until after we eat to check in, so only take 1 bite and then really think about how it's going to affect you after you have eaten. 5 S's of mindful eating. So you want to sit down, Slowly chew. Use your senses to taste your food, smell your food, and listen to the sounds your food makes. Savor your food and smile. Pause between bites and enjoy the food and enjoy life. Eat consistently to keep your blood sugar stable and avoid crashes in energy from blood sugar suddenly spiking or dropping. Don't wait too long in between meals to eat when your body is telling you it's hungry and needs energy. Make vegetables, fruit, whole grains, protein, and healthy fats the majority of your diet. These foods provide fiber, healthy fats, complex carbohydrates, and protein, which are sources of more lasting energy that will be metabolized slower and result in a more gradual increase in blood sugar. Eat before you're ravenous. Avoid cravings from waiting until you're too hungry to eat. So use the scale. It can be so helpful. A good way to assess when it's time to eat is using a 10-point hunger scale, with 1 being uncomfortably hungry and 10 being uncomfortably full. Start eating when you're at a 3 or 4 so that you don't hit that point that you're so hungry that you will overeat or eat the wrong things. And stop eating when you're at a 7 or 8. When we wait until we're uncomfortably hungry to eat, we're more likely to eat based off of our emotions and may not necessarily make the most nutritious choices. Have you heard the expression, "I'm so hungry that I could eat a horse"? If you wait until you're completely starving to eat, you may feel like a bottomless pit that even foods that size of a horse could not fill. This can make it difficult to accurately listen to our hunger and fullness signals. So take this into consideration and start thinking about starting to eat when you're at a 3 or 4 and stopping when you're at a 7 or 8. Ditch the deprivation mentality. This is also called the diet mentality. Focus on all of the healthy foods that you can eat that can make your body feel good. Avoid fixating on the bad or less nutritious foods that taste good but may make you feel guilty after eating, since they don't provide your body with the nourishment it needs to function its best. However, know that it's good for you for your mental health to mindfully eat an indulgent treat every once in a while as well. It can be comforting to relive the eating habits that we had as children, such as eating popcorn at the movie theater, enjoying ice cream at the beach, having a slice of pumpkin pie at the holidays. This can make us happy and help us to participate in a social activity that we would not otherwise participate in. By staying in touch with your body as you eat, you can enjoy your treat without losing control and feeling like you need to stuff yourself because you don't know when you'll be able to eat this again. And make sure that you don't deprive yourself of the foods, because then you're going to end up craving them more. So the occasional treat is not a bad thing. By giving yourself permission to eat and not making any specific foods completely off limits, you can decrease the guilt associated with eating and become more aware of your body's needs, whatever they may be. So these tips, along with a balanced stress management routine, can help you to obtain and maintain a positive mood, allowing you to be happier, healthier, both in the workplace and at home. So let's take the remainder of our time today to do some self-reflection and learn more about the relationship between food and our own mood. Think about the answers to each of these questions and write them down on a piece of paper. For the last question, choose one mood-boosting food tip to allow at your next meal, and see if you notice a difference in your mood and mindset after eating. So, pause the screen for a minute if you need to and write down these questions, and then take the time to answer them so that you can move forward and challenge yourself to be more aware of your mood and how it affects your food intake, and your food intake and how it affects your mood. Thank you.